Hello, kia ora, I'm Philip Duncan. It is Wednesday, the 13th of August. Thank you for joining me. We've got high pressure moving into the South Island at the moment and a few showers around the eastern side of the North Island, some of those coming up to the top of the country as well. Basically high pressure dominating the South Island, so there's not a lot of weather action to the south at the moment. Still a few showers with that southeasterly flow around the North Island, and yes, a few thunderstorms just off the west coast. You never know, you might see a couple of flashes of lightning tonight if they're still around, if you're along the west coast. Otherwise, it is cold and dry weather for the western side of New Zealand. Those thunderstorms forming just on the northern side of the high pressure where the air pressure drops off. Let's have a look at the situation going into this evening. So there is the low to the northeast, high pressure around the south. And so in between the two, you've got the southeasterly flow. So that's why we're still seeing a few showers around the eastern North Island and the eastern side of around sort of Northland area. Otherwise, high pressure is the main feature and it is moving in and across the country over the next couple of days. So still frosty. Frosty morning tomorrow around the South Island and around a big part of the North Island, although not quite so much now at the top half of the island, and the frosts that do form aren't looking very heavy. As we go through to Friday, you can see the warmer winds developing. Those frosts melt away from parts of Southland and along the eastern side of the South Island. And then as you go into the North Island, frosty weather leans a little bit more to the east, higher elevation around the mountains and ranges, not so much down at the lower levels. And you can drill down deeper with the frost information. Those generic maps I just showed you, they are generic. They sort of give you a heads up as to where the coldest weather will be. If you want to drill down to your local area, here is Alexandra, you can find frost information in our app, in the free Weather Watch app. And if frosts matter to you, for $6.99 a month, you can get your own frost alerts. And if the frost alerts aren't accurate enough for you, you can change the criteria to make them more accurate for you. So for businesses, farmers, growers, gardeners, $6.99 a month is nothing really to get those sort of warnings. But you can see here, likely frost in the darker shading, possible frost in the lighter shading. So it's a helpful guide if frosts matter to you. Let's get into the forecast. Here on Thursday, high pressure is still around the country. It's kind of moving over New Zealand, but the main centre is reorganising itself. Quite a normal thing when you've got a couple of highs joining together. It's no different than if you've ever watched a couple of drops of water go down a windscreen or on a window and they hit another bubble of water and they suddenly take off into a new system. That's kind of what we're seeing here. Two bubbles of high pressure joining together, and now the centre is reforming over here, and it's a bigger high pressure system as a result of that. But we're on the edges of it, so that means it's still cold around the country on Thursday. A couple of showers, maybe moving into the western side of the North Island after it's been on the eastern side the last couple of days. So not a lot of weather around the country on Thursday and very little weather on Friday. By that I mean much to talk about. Sunnier weather is coming in. The high from Australia now trying once more to move in over the top of us. And as a result of that placement, now you've got a just slightly milder airflow as a westerly brushing the lower part of New Zealand, and you'll start to feel a westerly flow developing around Cook Strait. So going into the weekend, the high very quickly from Friday to Saturday jumps over us. Now it's right next to the Chatham Islands. Hello to any possible viewers there. If you're a viewer from the Chatham Islands, been asking this for 20 years, I would love to hear from you. Windy nor'westers are starting to develop around the south, so that's going to push your temperatures up both by day and by night. They'll become windy around the lower North Island, and at the top of New Zealand, northeasterly winds coming from around Tonga. Hello to anyone in Tonga who's watching us. So that milder airflow is coming down and around the country going into Saturday. Showers develop on the west coast, couple of snow flurries up in the mountains down around Fiordland National Park and South Westland. By Sunday, colder air now brushing the south again. That's where we see more snow, not much, for populated areas, but seeing some snow up in the mountains there. At the other end of the country, due to all the low pressure that's forming and the exiting high pressure, we've got a subtropical flow coming down. So Sunday will be milder. Doesn't mean it's warm or hot, but it means it's warmer than it's been. And that's why the polar line is disappearing, as you've noticed over the last couple of days going into the weekend. Monday. So the energy's really over in Australia on Monday. They have a wintry setup here, snow down to potentially only 600, 700 metres around the Australian Alps. That's quite low for them. Small area of low pressure that is connecting up with low pressure in the New Zealand area, and at the same time a high out around sort of Western Australia and the western side of South Australia is sending a ridge of high pressure towards Stewart Island. That makes it really messy. So that's why I was having that little label on the Tuesday forecast for next week saying not locked in, because this is a complicated setup. Now I've got to say just quickly before I show you the Tuesday map, Paul Gorman, who's a journalist, works at the New Zealand Listener and its Stuff, fantastic journalist, covers weather and science in a great way. And Paul and I often joke about how these long range maps predict a winter blast, and then a couple of days before it arrives, all the modelling reverses that. And it says, oh, it doesn't look so bad. So we're kind of used to that. That's because the Southern Ocean area is so turbulent at this time of the year. But keep in mind, when Cyclone Gabrielle formed up in the tropics, the long-range modelling picked that 14 days out with very high accuracy. So the air is kind of thicker up here, more moisture in it. There's a bit more predictability once something's formed as to where it might go. Down here, the lows are so large, so turbulent, anything can happen. And that is the precursor to showing you how the GFS map, and I've got the European one straight after this, for next Tuesday, or the Tuesday coming up, shows a very messy setup and quite different to yesterday's, and a few days before that it was also different. So as a forecaster, what I look for, where is the high pressure? Because that is the most dominant, large part of the weather. So you've got a fairly strong high based around here. That means there is wintry weather coming up, but this model is now picking a small area of high pressure close to the lower South Island, where yesterday that low was there. So that makes it frustrating, but it basically means there's some low pressure in the area. It's going to be unsettled at some point, so we're not predicting beautiful sunny skies around New Zealand Tuesday next week, but some areas may be dry, and other areas may have severe weather right in the center there. So that is the Tuesday map. Well, by the way, notice the polar airflow line is only over the South Island. Let's jump to the European model. This far out, they don't show rainfall, but they do show the placement of air pressure. And this one is similar to yesterday's map because there is the big high shaped tall over Tasmania, dredging up the colder wind that is going all the way up to the top of the country, and low pressure is over on the western side, not the eastern side, although there is a large low here around the Chatham Islands. So basically, when you look at those two models, what do they have in common? Both of them have low pressure around central New Zealand, whether it's on the west coast or the east coast, that's neither here nor there at this early stage, and both of them have high pressure out in this zone. So we still have to wait to lock in what is happening next Tuesday. Based on today's maps, looks more like a wind chill event for people. Bit of snow around in the mountains, certainly we are still expecting that to be around, but whether or not it comes down to low levels or not, that's a different question. We're going to need some more time to work it out. And I'm just as frustrated as you are when the modelling does this, but to me it's not surprising in winter for stormy stuff in our part of the world. If it was up in the tropics, it would be, I would imagine, a little easier to forecast. Lastly, expected rainfall through to this Sunday. Very dry around New Zealand. So at the bottom of the scale for the whole country, and the areas you see here in the blue and the purple, 5 to 10, maybe a little bit more than that, millimeters, most of that's happening at the moment, and then it clears off. And so it is a pretty dry forecast through till Sunday. Hopefully over tomorrow and Friday, we can lock in with a lot more detail what is likely to happen around Monday and Tuesday. And by the way, I'm focusing on this because there are a lot of farmers going into lambing. It's a little early for some of you, but some of you are already in lambing and calving. And so this detail does actually matter. Those of you in the cities probably are disappointed that you're not seeing a major snow event, but the farmers will be relieved. So, one step forward, one step backwards, depending on who you are, where you are. But hopefully over tomorrow, Friday, we can lock in next week with a bit more detail. That is all from me. Weather forecasters are just like politicians, honestly. We never really give you the answer sometimes, but we try to. That is all from me. I think forecasters are more honest. Yeah, I'm pretty sure about that one. Have a good rest of your day. I'll see you again tomorrow, Thursday.